The Yale Alumni Chorus. We've been called ambassadors of song, bringing 150 years of Yale University's choral singing tradition to audiences around the world.
One of the great things about music is it's beyond language, it's beyond political boundaries.
Beginning in 1998, our group of Yale singers, their families, and singing friends has spent several weeks each year rehearsing, traveling, and performing.
The reason that we all love being members of this chorus is that we love singing together, but we also love to share our music with other people.
China, Africa, South and Central America, Russia, the United Kingdom, and more.
I believe in their mission, which is that music really can bring people together, I guess. And so I was very excited to do that here in Vietnam.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Talk Vietnam, changing lives through the universal language of music. That's the idea behind the Yale Alumni Chorus, or YAC. They have been reaching out to in different activities, both internationally and domestically, through their music. And we are very lucky to have two members of the group here on Talk Vietnam today. We have YAC Music Director Jeffrey Dama, and also one of the veteran members of YAC. Her name is Laura Couchman. Thank you very much both for joining our Talk Vietnam today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Now, one of the kind of slogans of YAC is that the members are ambassadors of songs. Can you both please share what is the idea behind ambassadors of songs?
Sure. Well, the genesis of the Glee Club really goes, or of the alumni chorus really goes back to the Yale Glee Club, which is the student chorus at Yale University, which was founded in 1861. And the Glee Club has a long history of musical ambassadorship throughout the world that really began in 1928, when the conductor of the Glee Club at the time, Marshall Bartholomew, took the group on its first international tour. And since then, I think it's become an important part of the group's identity, as it has for many choruses around the world. And so when the alumni chorus was founded in 1998, I think part of the idea was that singers who sang as students at Yale in the Glee Club or in other singing ensembles would have a chance to relive that experience of sharing music with each other, but also with sharing music with audiences around the world.
I remember the director at that time sent a letter out for our first trip to China in 1998, and he thought he would get about 20 people. And our trip, I think there were over 300 on that trip, because so many alumni, singing alumni of Yale, were so excited to have the opportunity to do again what we had done as students, which is to go to a different part of the world and experience being in a country in such a different way than when you're a tourist.
Exactly, and music, after all, is a very global language, as we said in the beginning, a universal language. So you see these activities as almost an ambassadorship. Yes. Going back now to kind of the songs that you sing, what are some of the most important messages that YAC hopes to convey through the songs that the group sings?
Well, the repertoire is very varied, just as it is for the student ensembles at Yale. Everything from traditional college songs to great choral orchestral masterworks. The message, at least certainly as musical director, I hope that the message comes through regardless of what the specific repertoire is. There is something about not only music as an art form, but specifically vocal music as an art form. The sound of the human voice, which of course is something that we all share, is something that certainly transcends national boundaries.
main introductions for the group actually was, striving to change lives through universal music. How do you think that has, been conveyed through what you do?
My life has really been changed by this group. For one, I was on one of these trips and I met my husband.
Yes.
And we both went to Yale, but at different times, and we met each other on one of these trips and we got married afterwards. So every time we come on a trip, it's like a honeymoon.
My 10-year-old son is traveling with me on this trip. My wife, who's also a choral conductor, is on her own tour right now, and so my daughter's with her and my son's with me. And I was just having a conversation with him last night because, of course, like me, this is his first time in Vietnam. And we were talking about, what's the value of visiting other places? Why not just stay at home in Connecticut where everything feels comfortable and where you know the names of the streets and you know the currency? And he was reflecting about how, well, now when somebody talks about this part of the world, it's not just an abstract name or a shape on a map, but he'll think about the people that he saw, he'll think about the sound of the language that he heard, he'll think about the food that he ate and the smells, and he'll think about the shops that he saw. Mm-hmm. So even for those of us who are adults, I think we carry that same kind of imprint with us wherever.
Exactly. As you said, it's not only about, carrying a certain message, but also, taking back something for yourself as well, learning from the places that you visit. Laura, you mentioned a wonderful story, and that is that you met your husband, through YAC. So YAC must hold a very special place in your life.
It is a very special experience for us, and we're not the only ones. There's a couple of other couples who met while traveling, sharing this love of Yale and the love of singing, and having the opportunity to reconnect with so many friends every time we go on a trip.
Do you remember kind of the first days of you joining in YAC?
I do. I had the opportunity to go on the very first tour to China, so it was quite an adventure with many, many buses and lots of We went to Beijing and Shanghai, and we had over 300 people on the tour.
Wow.
And it was produced just by a graduate of Yale who had sung with the Glee Club, who decided this would be a great experience, and he and a bunch of volunteers organized the whole thing, and it was a big adventure.
Many of the members of YAC began, as you said, from Yale Glee Club. For you, was it the same?
Yes.
That you
Yes.
sang throughout college?
I sang throughout college and had sung a little bit afterwards, but getting back involved with the Yale Alumni Chorus reconnected me to Yale in a very special way, and again to singing in a very special way. And that's true for many of the singers. We're such a range of ages. We have people on this trip who are in their 80s.
Wow.
And people who are 22 and 23 who just graduated. And so the experience of traveling...
Actually, even younger. We have
Yeah.
one singer who's going to be attending Yale this fall.
But that's right.
So
right.
she's
Like
only
18 or
she's
17.
not an
maybe,
alumni yet.
maybe even 17, yeah.
So the opportunity to travel in that kind of a community of singers and talk with and meet different people from different generations is very special too.
Going back a little bit to the start of YAC, you mentioned that, you know, the person who was starting it expected only 20 people to reply, but instead got a few hundred people to reply. Why do you think, you know, YAC has gained such, you know, a connection amongst different Yale alumni?
The events have been remarkable. I think the whole concept of being ambassadors of song and doing again what we had done together in college was very inspiring to a lot of people, and people came. Some people come on most of the trips, some people just come on some, so every group is a little bit different. But it's...
I think at the end it comes down to personal relationships, the kinds of relationships that form within the tour, much like Laura and her husband Bill. I think those are the things that keep people coming back. And I think that the reason, you know, it's sort of a circular thing, because I think the reason that those personal relationships are strong has a lot to do with the music. It's not, I mean, you could travel on a, you know, just a tourist trip. You know, here's a group of people, we're going to go to Athens and see that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you take that kind of experience and say, but also we're going to work really, really hard on this artistic end result, and we're going to try to make it as good as we can, and you have to listen to everybody around you. You have to make sure that your voice is fitting in with this large group of people. That somehow, it's hard to explain, but I think it really creates a very special bond.
And I think it helps create the energy of being together to sing together. You learn to listen to each other, and you learn to do things together.
And you have a common goal of making a great artistic piece,
and
basically.
And so what I tell my students and what they tell me is that the music makes the personal relationship stronger, and the personal relationships make the music stronger. And that's kind of a continual cycle that feeds itself, and it feeds itself across generations.
I'm sure the audience is very curious as to what this performance entails. It's one of the highlights, obviously, of YAC as they come here to Hanoi. It's an exchange between American and Vietnamese music. So we'll take a look at the following report to see more about this highlight.
The performance began with Concerto for Piano and Orchestra No. 3 in A major. Scarlett Chongzhou started to learn the piano when she was 5. However, she did not become a musician. Chongzhou instead graduated from Yale University with the History major. Together with the orchestra from the Vietnam National Opera Ballet, this Chinese girl won the audience approval with her piano performance.
I think when it comes to music, it is the thing that unites everyone. So I think once you're in an orchestra or once you're in a choir, you stop being any nationality, you just become a musician.
The Requiem by the great composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart concluded the performance night. This 225-year-old composition is an everlasting call for mercy and peace on earth. The message was conveyed with the help of talented Vietnamese and American artists.
I was especially impressed by how well the Vietnamese and the American artists worked together. And I thought it was truly impressive that despite, the differences in culture and language, they were able to come together and make a really incredible musical performance.
The performance moved audiences, even ones who are unfamiliar with this academic art form.
Đây là lần đầu tiên tôi đến nghe nhạc. Bình thường thì ở nhà thì cũng thi thoảng cũng nghe piano. Mình không hiểu nhiều về âm nhạc nhưng mà cảm thấy là rất là thấy thú vị. Có cái gì đó nó yên bình ấy, mình thấy cũng rất là thấy thư thái hơn.
Bass voice Annie Berry became an official member of the Yale Alumni Chorus 2 years ago. This is the first time Annie has gone on a tour with the chorus. Being a singer of YAC is the passion of Andy, as well as other American students during their college years.
In college especially, people like to join choruses because they like the social aspect. They like the friends and choirs. There's something about singing with other people, singing with your best friends that is amazing. Science even shows that when a chorus sings together, like their hearts start to beat at the same rate because they are all breathing together. There's just something about it that creates a very special bond.
Members of the Yale Alumni Chorus gather once a year for an international tour. To make such a successful performance, members of the chorus had to practice for days before rehearsing in Hanoi with Chef Domar and other artists. Of the performing crew, the youngest is only 18, while the oldest is 85.
How has that been working with the Vietnam National Opera and Ballet Orchestra?
It's great. They're a wonderful, wonderful group. But I very much appreciate how responsive they are. Every little thing that I ask for, they're always doing their best to deliver it.
Now you mentioned earlier, obviously, the first trip to China was one of the main highlights. I believe another highlight was actually in Russia?
In Russia, yes, the group, I was not there, but the group sang in the Kremlin, which I think we were the first American chorus ever to sing in the Kremlin. And we accompanied Dmitry Horosovsky, who is a famous baritone, and our chorus learned Russian songs. It was powerful because many of the songs are World War II songs. So people in the audience were weeping. It was a very important performance for the folks in that country, and it was wonderful that we could be part of it.
Exactly. For you, Jeff, since 2003 in different tours, what have been some of the highlights for you?
Well, one that comes to mind was a really unique collaboration in Istanbul. In 2011 was the Glee Club's 150th anniversary. So the students, the Glee Club, had a trip through Europe, and then at the end of that trip, we met the alumni chorus in Turkey, and we gave a concert together, which was the Vaughan Williams Dona Nobis Pacem. Not the most frequently performed piece, but a really beautiful piece that's largely Walt Whitman's Civil War era poetry. And of course, the Glee Club began in 1861, which was the same year that the US Civil War began. And I think it was very interesting to perform those words together with an orchestra of musicians. Actually, it was an orchestra called the Tekfen Philharmonic that's based in Istanbul, but draws its musicians from throughout the Middle East. So there were musicians in that group from Iran, from Iraq, from Egypt, for example, a very international group, to perform with the current Yale students and the current Yale Alumni Chorus, this work that looks back on this military conflict that the US experienced so devastatingly. Today, with a group of orchestral musicians from throughout the Middle East, I think had a lot of really interesting and wonderful resonances, and I think we were very grateful to have that experience.
collegiate choral groups are something very foreign to Vietnamese people here. Yeah. It just seems like, you know, the choir culture is very big in terms of different colleges in the States.
It's a big part of the collegiate experience in the U.S. I think for a lot of students in colleges and universities in the United States who sang in a choir, after they graduate, that becomes one of the real touchstones. When they think back on their college experience, they often think first about the...
For you, Laura.
Exactly.
We'll have a reunion. I think the 155th
155th.
anniversary of the Yale Glee Club is happening, and alumni from all over the country and the world will come to New Haven for a weekend, just almost like this experience, where they hand us some music and we sing together.
After all, that's the reason why YAC started, because everyone had this kind of nostalgia for their singing experience back in college. As the music director, Jeff, how would you describe the artistic style of YAC?
Well, it depends on the music that we're singing, I think, to some extent. But probably we're in line with the overall aesthetic of a community chorus in the United States, a generational chorus that sings a wide range of repertoire. Again, from folk songs and spirituals and Yale songs to large choral orchestral works. But beyond that, I wouldn't say that there's any one particular stylistic aesthetic that we're shooting for. Most important, we're trying to get the words at the same time, the right notes at the same time.
Exactly. As we said, practices are rare to come by. So the fact that you're together in one place in a foreign country is already great.
Yeah.
First things first.
Yeah, we're volunteer singers. The members of the Yale Alumni Chorus are business people and retirees and moms and teachers and all different things in their regular life.
And actually, that's another thing that I think we and many other people cherish about choral singing, because it is in some ways the great amateur art form. You certainly have to have a certain amount of ability. You have to be able to read a little music and have to be able to know how to make a lovely sound with your voice. But you can be someone whose vocation is the medical profession or law or a teacher, for example, but still get together with a group like this and perform a piece like the Mozart Requiem, we hope, at a reasonably high level. And that's a little bit different than, say, players in an orchestra who really have to be people who devote their careers to it. And that's something that we really cherish about the art form.
One of the activities also for YAC is musical outreach programs. Laura, can you tell us about these?
We would like to also connect with the community and give back to organizations and people who may be in need. My husband, I remember when we went to Cuba, he collected up a bunch of wheelchairs and walkers, and we loaded them in with our checked luggage and donated them to an organization in Cuba. So, and in South Africa, we were all asked to bring musical instruments. So we went through our closets and dug up our child's violin that they hadn't touched in 20 years, or the extra reeds for the instruments, and we presented them to a youth orchestra in
Port Elizabeth.
In Port Elizabeth, South Africa. So I think it is part of our experience of building bridges and being ambassadors to also do something that gives us a connection with the community.
Here in Vietnam, with the group traveling, there are also children and spouses of the members of the group traveling here as well, and they actually joined in to go to the Friendship Village for activities there. So we'll take a look at that in the following report.
35 non-singing companions accompanying the YAC choir spent an afternoon at the Vietnam Friendship Village in Văn Canh Commune, Hoài Đức District, 15 kilometers from the center of Hanoi. The facility provides education and vocational training for more than 100 people with disabilities who are children of Vietnamese veterans affected by Agent Orange dioxin during the war.
Well, it really breaks your heart. I was a teacher in the United States and a school principal, and we had many children with learning disabilities, and it's always this hard thing to see. It looks to me like they're doing an excellent job here of preparing them for the world. They're learning many skills that will help them re-enter into society and be able to take care of themselves when they get older.
We brought all these things, and all our little boys and girls are giving them out to the children. But you can see that our kids are as happy as these kids, because when you give, you get back more than you actually give.
During the war, the US Army spread nearly 80 million liters of defoliants and herbicides over Vietnam's land, leading to catastrophic consequences. Nearly 4.8 million Vietnamese were exposed to harmful chemicals, 3 million of which are Agent Orange dioxin-affected victims. This visit to the Vietnam Friendship Village helped YAC members better understand the suffering of the victims.
It's a terrible, terrible situation with Agent Orange. It didn't just affect the people that got harmed by it, but the generations after that.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
It is no coincidence that the 85 chorus singers of YAC and their 35 companions chose Vietnam as their destination. Many of those on this tour are veterans who fought in the war in Vietnam. They have always wished to return to this country.
Many of our older members had a relationship to Vietnam that they wanted to rekindle and remind themselves about what happened 50 years ago. But we know that this is a very, very different Vietnam. So we wanted to come back and see what Vietnam was like when the United States has a very strong relationship now with Vietnam in many areas, commercial and otherwise. And it seemed like just the right time.
For recruiting members, do you recruit new members every year? You send out emails, or
yes, we have a large list. And
is there an audition process?
No,
It's non-audition.
Yes, completely voluntary.
Yeah. We do reserve the right. If we put out a call for a tour, and we found that we had 4 sopranos and 120 basses, then obviously we'd have to do something. But actually,
happened, right?
it hasn't. No, it always seems the gods of like equal choral balance always seem to smile on us somehow, and we more or less get the same number of sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses.
In the first couple of choruses, women only started going to Yale in the 70s, so there weren't
Right.
as many women in the early Yale alumni choruses. But in recent years, we balance
Even
out fine.
18
Yeah.
years seems to
Yeah.
have shifted that.
If I may ask, how is YAC functioned in finance? You mentioned it being voluntary.
It has a board of trustees. It is connected with Yale, but more or less legally independent of Yale, and it is supported through donations from the members of the chorus.
Yeah.
The travelers pay for their own trips.
Yes.
But we have resources so that especially some of the younger singers who are new in their careers and don't have a retirement savings saved up to travel with, are able to be subsidized by the funds that are collected by donations. So we have accumulated a good pool of money to help support and fund our events.
Today, members of the Center for Training and Rehabilitation for the Blind under the Vietnam Blind Association received special guests, the ambassadors of song from the US. These friends from the US performed Shenandoah, a famous American folk song from the 19th century, as their first music gift to the host.
Khi tôi tiếp nhận được thông tin của Đại sứ quán Hoa Kỳ là có buổi giao lưu này, thì nói thật sự tôi chưa hình dung gì được hết. Nhưng tôi bất ngờ, đó là gì? Khi tôi nghe họ hát là một đoàn cựu sinh viên có nhiều lứa tuổi, và không ngờ mà họ hát phải là rất là tuyệt vời và rất hay. Đó là một cái điều kiện, phải là một cái gương mà chúng tôi cần phải học tập.
The Vietnam Center for Training and Rehabilitation for the Blind also played their own part in the music show. Lưu Văn Dương gave his performance of flute, the musical instrument he learned to play all by himself.
Cái bản nhạc mà tôi thổi hôm nay thì là một cái bản nhạc rất là đặc biệt, đặc trưng của cái vùng miền Tây Bắc. Cũng chỉ có cái cây sáo mông này thì mới thổi hay được cái bản nhạc đó. Đó thì tôi cũng muốn gửi đến tới các bạn Mỹ là tôi là người mù ở bên Việt Nam, chúng tôi cũng rất là yêu âm nhạc như các bạn.
Xướng performance made a deep impression on the foreign friends, including Amy Donegan. She graduated from Yale University in 2007 and is now a member of the chorus. This is the first time she has been to Vietnam.
The musicians, their voices, the flute player, just absolutely phenomenal music. We feel very lucky to have been able to experience it. This musical exchange that we've had here today, and just, yeah, their incredible welcome that we've received everywhere that we've been so far in Vietnam. It's been really wonderful, life-changing.
Apart from young members like Amy, the Yale Alumni Chorus also enjoys the participation of members aged 80 to 85. Paul Downey started learning at Yale University in 1957 and joined the chorus of the university as a freshman. Today, Paul performed with the pride of Yale's 155 years of musical tradition.
A long tradition of American singing, which goes back to our Negro slave era in our country, and some of these songs that we sing are the songs that the black community sang, and we love to do them because they have the most beautiful music and harmonies. And wherever we go in the world, people love to hear us sing these spirituals.
Before saying goodbye, the Yale Alumni Chorus presented the Center for Training and Rehabilitation for the Blind, a modern audio system, expressing the hope that the center would have its own chorus in the future.
Jeff and Laura, how has being a member of YAC, what does it mean to you?
Well, I would say it enriched my life personally in immeasurable ways. I love being part of the Yale University musical community. I love being the conductor of the Glee Club, which also is a group. Most of our singers are not music majors. Some of them are, a few of them. I think that makes it a very rich and rewarding group to work with. And extending that to the alumni community, and the fact that even though I only started in the Glee Club in 2003, I've gotten to know very well scores of alumni, going back to probably Stowe Phelps, who's passed away not too long ago. I believe he was class of 1938 or 39. So is probably the oldest Glee Club alum that I got to know well as a friend. I mean, what a tremendous gift for me.
So many levels. The music is wonderful. Seeing new countries, new parts of the world is wonderful. Every tour connecting with new and old friends. It's just a very special experience.
Yes. What do you think makes up the success of YAC?
We work hard to do our very best. And the other thing about the success is that I just think the whole concept is wonderful. Bringing people who sang together in school back together to sing, going to a different part of the world. It has not changed in the 20 years that we have been together, and I think it's because it really works for us and works.
I think it comes down to what I was talking about earlier. It really comes down to the personal relationships more than anything else. Yes, probably more type A personalities per capita than many other choruses, but we're a group of amateurs, and we embrace that. We're not trying to be a professional chorus. We're trying to be a chorus of people who love to sing and who love to sing together, and are going to do everything they can to make their performances successful, but also recognize that at the end of the day, there are things that are just as important as the successful performance, and that's meaningful relationships with the people that you're singing with.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff and Laura, for joining us here today, sharing not only the story of YAC, but your love for singing and the personal relationships, obviously, that you have formed as part of YAC, and also bringing music to Vietnam.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone we've met so far in Vietnam who's welcomed us so warmly.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That wraps up this edition of Talk Vietnam with the Yale Alumni Chorus, YAC, that transcends across different generations of people coming from different lines of jobs, all coming together for the love of singing and also for the love of being ambassadors of songs. Thank you very much for joining us here on Talk Vietnam, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.